Hello! Welcome to my channel, Edible Thoughts Makes. My name is Stephanie, and this channel is where I share with you my works in progress, finished projects, things I'm cooking up, books I'm reading, funny things my kids may say. My hope is that as you watch this episode and the previous episodes, that you find some inspiration along the way. This is episode 110, and we are at the very end of July year 2023. I am coming to you from a very hot, humid, and sunny day in Minnesota, where I live with my husband and our 2 young children. We are halfway through summer break, a little over halfway through summer break, and it has been a very busy but fulfilling summer. The kids have had way more activities than they've had in the last several years, and it's all good things. There have been a lot of great things. We've had some family vacations, a road trip, and yeah, there's been times where we've had downtime as well, because I do very strongly believe in downtime. But yeah, we've just had a lot going on, and it's all good things. And I wasn't sure I was going to be able to jump in here to chat in the month of July, but I tried carving out a little bit of time today. We will see how this goes. I made a list of all the things that I wanted to chat with you about, and the list is pretty long. So we'll see where we go. I think there are, let's see, 8 finished projects and maybe 3 works in progress to chat about. There are more than 3 works in progress. There's maybe like 6, but maybe 3 that I'll talk about. And I've read a lot of books since June, and I believe my last episode at the end of June, I didn't get to Eats and Reads section. We were already at, I think, almost an hour or 45 minutes or something like that, and I just ran out of energy and ran out of time. So I am hoping to be able to squeeze that in here today. I think I have like 6 or 7 books to talk about from June and July, and I think I won't go in depth into any of them. I usually don't anyway. Often I'm talking about like reading style and things that jumped out at me, things that I really liked, maybe things that didn't resonate with me, stuff like that. So we'll see where we go with that. The garden has been doing great. We've had some summer rain, and that has helped out a lot with the garden. So speaking of gardens, here are some zinnias. These zinnias cut so well. I usually cut them early in the morning, and they will last for a good 2 weeks. I need to refill the water, and if I am going to dump out the old water, I usually dump it outside to water the plants and then refill with new water. But they last a long time, and I just love the colors. They're so pretty. I love a bright, warm palette. I'm trying to show the blooms without pouring water out everywhere. But there are these beautiful corals and yellow oranges and magenta and fuchsia and peachy colors and soft yellows. Oh, I just love this one. This like corally peachy color and this like pinky purpley color. Oh, they are so beautiful. And with zinnias, at least with this variety, the more often you cut, the more they grow and bloom, and that's perfect for cut flowers. I have some echinacea here. These ones got accidentally cut. I mean, it's fine that they're cut to bring inside, but we weren't planning on cutting them at the time. My husband was, I think, doing some weeding or something, and he said, hey, I brought some flowers in on accident, and anyway. But they're kind of interesting because they're like a lime green with a pink on the center of the petals, or not center, but I don't know what you call it, the middle. But yeah, they're kind of cool looking. So these are really fun. And the vegetables are going okay. Not as many tomatoes this year, at least not yet. I think I didn't plant as many tomatoes this year as previous years. Usually I can harvest enough by the end of the summer or throughout the summer to last us throughout the entire winter, so we never have to buy any tomatoes. This year, I'm not sure that's going to happen because I didn't plant as many tomatoes and they don't seem to be producing as much. I don't know. Maybe it's too early to say because they've just started kind of getting going and it's the end of July. So I feel like the tomato hot season here is like August. I don't know, we'll have to see. The peppers are doing really well, and maybe when I get to the eats and reads section, I'll share a little bit more about what I've been doing with some of the things coming out of our garden. But yeah, that's all going really well, and it's just been really hot, so we're trying to remember to stay hydrated. I'm trying to remind the kids to carry their water bottles everywhere and drink from them. But yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell all that is going on. So if you are new here, generally how I organize these videos is I have a little vlog in the beginning that features just some ongoings in our daily life, and then we go into an intro welcome section. I talk about the garden, I talk about the weather, that kind of stuff. Then we go into a finished project section, and then a works in progress section, and then an eats and reads section, and then if there's time, a food for thought section. And everything has timestamps in the description box below this video. Sometimes you have to click on show more, or there's like an arrow or something. And links to everything I talk about will be in the description box below, so I always recommend checking there first before you're asking, what's the name of whatever designer, or how do I get to their website? I tried to put all the information there. It takes a lot of work to write up show notes and keep them organized, so I do really thank you when you do your part and go and look so that I don't have to copy and paste or look up more information. I do use Ravelry for my project pages, so information will be there. I try to include all the information that I would have on a Ravelry project page here on these YouTube videos to make the information more accessible, but also to create another way of processing that information. I feel like sometimes some things are great written out, but sometimes having that visual can also make a big difference to see it in motion and I don't know, things like that. And I include closed captioning in all of my videos. If I talk too fast or too slow for your preferences on YouTube, you can adjust the speed. And I believe that is all of that. I have a new notebook because my previous notebook is full. I think this was a birthday present. I love stationery and I love flowers, so this works out perfectly. The first finished project I'd like to share with you is the one that I am wearing. I had shared a sneak peek of it in June, end of June, before it was being released. And it was released July 6th, I believe. This is the Slightly Sassy V, and I test this pattern for Amy Scher. I really like it. It is a fingering weight tee with various views. It is a V-neck, knit top-down construction, raglan shaping, and the raglan shaping is thoughtfully designed so that it sits without a lot of excess fabric in the underarm, and it's not only size inclusive but also shape inclusive and has different sections in the pattern where you can adjust as needed depending on how you like your garments to fit. I knit the second size to give me a finished circumference with about 5 inches of positive ease, and that is my ideal range of positive ease. I mean, it's like 4 to 8 inches is kind of my range, depending on the garment, depending on the style, depending on the fabric, but in general. The needles I used are a US 4, which is a 3.5 millimeter for the main fabric, and then there is some ribbing, and I can't tell from my notes if I used a US 2 or a US 3. What did I write down here? It has been a while since I finished this, so I don't quite remember. In any case, I went down a needle size or 2 for the ribbing, and then I played around a bit with this I-cord edging for the neckline, because you go back and pick it up later and it is designed to be slightly deeper than what I have here, but based on my preferences and my body and how I like it to sit on me, I prefer the V to be higher. And so I didn't change anything with how this construction for the top section was done. I figured since the neckline is something you pick up later, I could just adjust it that way. And it worked out just fine. So I ended up picking up my neckline. I think I did it like 3 times. But the benefit is you're not picking up live stitches, so that it's very easy to rip out and redo versus being worried about stitches dropping. And so I tried different kinds of I-cord edgings, and I just tried a few things. And so I ended up really liking it on a US 1.5 needle, which is pretty small, but again, this is fingering weight, and I wanted it to be cinched in a little bit more. I also feel like my I-cords tend to be on the looser end, and so I need to go down in needle size to make sure it looks neater. And so because of how it pulls, there is a slight, what would you say? It's not like holes, but it just doesn't look maybe the same as the sample ones from Amy because I have it pulled in tighter. Now if I didn't have it pulled in as tight, you might not see like how the stitches have like a little bit of gapiness here on the edge. I'm only pointing it out as like an observation, not as a criticism at all. Definitely not on the pattern because I changed that part, but not as a criticism on myself. I'm just saying it so that you know. I don't know. As an observation that if you are going to do stuff like that, sometimes the stitches get pulled differently. It all blocks out just fine. This has been blocked. This has been worn multiple times. I really enjoy the fit. The yoke is shallower, so I would not call this a layering piece, which is fine because it's a fingering weight sweater anyway. And I mean, I guess if I wanted to wear it over like a camisole or tank top, it's probably fine, but nothing with like underarm sleevage type of situation things. It's by no means like up in my armpit, but I feel like there's not like a ton of room there for good reason then, because then I don't have a lot of extra fabric either under my arms, which works out very nice. I did extend the body length by 1 inch or 2 maybe. What did I say here? I don't remember. I extended it a little bit because I like mine to hit a little bit past high hip. So my hip would be like here, and the ribbing starts, I think, pretty much at the top of my hip. And then I also extended my sleeve length by 1 inch or 2. I don't remember what it was because I want my sleeve to be past my elbow, so when I bend my arm, my sleeve doesn't end up above my elbow. Otherwise, I would just knit like an elbow length sweater if that's what I wanted. But if I want it 3/4 length, I generally prefer it a little bit longer. And in general, when I have shirts either ready to wear or ones that I'm following a pattern for that I'm making myself, I generally end up extending the length of the sleeves and the body slightly anyway for my preferences on how I like my sweaters to fit. I am wearing this one tucked into a high-waisted skirt that I will talk about as well because I sewed this skirt and I really, really like this pair in here. I just think it looks so nice, and it's a little bit warm for today, but I think it'll be perfect in the fall. I can either wear it with like brown boots or anything. I just really like it. Maybe I'll sit down so that you can see my face. Sorry about that. Okay, what else to tell you about this? Oh, the yarn. So I used the Linen Quill yarn by Purl Soho. This is yarn I purchased either earlier this year or last year. I can't remember. I think it was last year, but I really wanted to make a V-neck tee with it. I just hadn't decided on a pattern yet. And so when Amy put out the test call for this one, I thought that is it. I'm set. This is exactly what I want. And so the colorway is Lychee Pink, and the yarn comes in 439 yards for 100 grams. It is, let's see if I have do I have a tag here? If I do, here is the tag. It's 50% fine Highland wool, 35% alpaca, and 15% linen. The linen doesn't take up the dye the same way as the animal fibers do, so you have this heathered appearance, which I really adore. I love this Lychee Pink colorway because it's like an earthy pink, but there's like some red in it, and there's just dimension, it's not flat looking, and it's such a nice neutral pink that I can wear with anything in my wardrobe, and I just really like it. I used 195 grams total, and it's just perfect. I love it. So I only needed 2 skeins or 2 hanks. If you've been here for a little bit and watched some of my other videos, I talked about the difference between a skein and a hank. Actually, I didn't talk about that. I questioned it because it seems like everybody uses them interchangeably, but I'm pretty sure they're different. So, and other people confirmed it in the comments below as well. If you're curious, I think you can just Google definition of a skein of yarn versus a hank of yarn and you'll find it. But I'm not going to go into it here. It's a tangent. Anyway, so I don't think there were any other real big modifications or anything. I would love to knit this sweater again. I would love to knit it in a plant fiber. I would love it in black, but my eyes would not like me to knit it in black. I've been eyeing this other color that I think it would look really nice in. It's like a moody purpley black color. Oh, I think it would be so good. I don't know, we'll see. Maybe that's as close to black as I will get. I like black. I don't have a lot of black in my wardrobe, but I'm really not sure about knitting with black. I don't know, we'll see. But I love this sweater. I think it's well written out, and all the sizes have been tested, and people have tested it in multiple different views with short sleeves, and I don't know if anybody's done a full-length sleeve. But you could certainly do that if you wanted to. People have knitted at a cropped length, at a longer cropped length, at a longer length, and it's been really nice to see all the different ways that testers have styled their sweater, and yeah, it's really fun. So I think the hashtag is Slightly Sassy V. I'll put the hashtag here on the screen so you can see it. So with this outfit that I am just really loving today, I'm wearing some new earrings. Oh, I love them. I bought these from the Farmer's Daughter Fibers website. I don't know if they still have any. I can't remember when I bought these, but here is the, I don't know if tag's the right word, the card, the thing the earrings came on. The company is called Mayana, and Farmer's Daughter Fibers carries it. And these earrings are made by women in Colombia. I don't know why I'm showing you this side. This is where the earrings were sitting. Oh yeah, there, maybe you can see it better if I put it over the tag. They are pretty big. I would say, is this like 3 to 4 inches maybe long? But the beadwork is amazing. It is so beautiful and so delicate, and I bought a few pairs. But this one matches my outfit really well, and I feel like the colors here, they can go with so many different things, at least in my wardrobe. And you know, you could wear just all black and have these statement earrings, or wear clothes that have bits and parts of these different colors, or just wear all neutral, and oh, I just love them. They're very lightweight, and they're very well made, and they make me so happy. So I love them. Okay, I talked about the earrings, I talked about the sweater. Let's talk about my skirt. Yeah, I guess we'll go into some of the sewing stuff that I have done recently. If you are new here, I have been sewing, knitting, crocheting, all those artsy things ever since I was a little girl. My mom is a super crafty person, and so that's the environment that I grew up in, being resourceful and being crafty and being creative and exploring things and trying different things. And so my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, also sews. I don't know if I'm not sure if she still sews, but she used to teach sewing out of her house back in the day. And so that was the environment my mother was around as well. And so sewing's just in my blood. I'm not the best about following patterns, and things that have to be like exact to the millimeter really, I don't know if annoys me is the right word, but it's like too fussy. So a lot of the times when I'm sewing stuff, I'm not following a pattern. I'm doing what the fabric tells me to do. I'm working with whatever fabric I have. I often like to go into remnant bins at fabric stores, and that tells me my yardage, right? And then I just go from there. Which also means a lot of times I end up with very minimal waste if possible, and whatever's left over I can always make into patchwork project bags or other things. But if I just have just the right amount and I try to use the whole thing, and then that project is done, and that is super satisfying. So I will show you my skirt. I just bought this fabric too. Oops, sorry. I'm not sure I can move back far enough. Maybe if I stand on the chair you'll be able to see better. But I love this fabric. There's some coppery, like metallic parts to it as well. And this is a cotton linen blend. It's 80% cotton and 20% linen, I believe. I used every last, well no, I take that back. I did not use every last yarn. I'm gonna stand on this chair, maybe you can see it better. Ah, there we go. Okay, so it's about knee length. It's an elastic waist. There are inseam pockets, and the pockets I used a cotton linen fabric. I think this is like Kaufman Essex. It's a cotton linen by Kaufman Fabrics, and the pockets are pretty invisible because they're on the seam. So it's literally 2 pieces of fabric sewn together, and I did have to do a little work with the waistband on this one because this fabric is 44 inches wide, and I wasn't going to have the length that I wanted. It was going to be slightly too short if I needed to use that same cut for the waistband. So I think I had a little more than a yard. It was in the remnants bin of my local fabric store, and so I cut part of that off. Once I figured out my width, then I cut the side off, and then I used that for my waistband, sewed that onto the waistband part, and then kind of went from there. So I have a tiny bit remaining that I'll probably make into a project bag with other fabrics, but really, really happy with how this turned out. I will insert a little video here, if I haven't already, to show you the parts of the inside of the skirt and show you that I literally used the selvage edge. I used everything that I could. And I do have a serger, so I usually serge all my edges. I do all that before I do my pre-wash of the fabric, and then I serge all the raw edges before I piece everything together. It just makes things a lot easier. That's what I like to do. So I don't follow a pattern for these skirts. I use the fabric that I have, and if it's not wide enough or not long enough, then I add on pieces and make it work. So that will segue me into these 2 other skirts that I also sewed recently. This rusty orange one. This fabric is by Joann's. It is the linen look fabric, and I believe it's, I can't remember if it's 80-20 or 90-10 viscose linen. And it is very soft. It's slightly rough. It's not like super smooth and silky. Definitely not. But I think it'll wear well. It's slightly see-through. Like, maybe don't stand with the sun right behind you. I'm not sure if it'll show here. But I can see through it a little bit. I don't think it's going to be a problem wearing it out. Just more so like something I just know. Like, I don't think you would be able to see like printed underwear or anything. Anyway. Oh, so I can show you here. It's serged on the inside. I also have the inseam pockets on this one. This elastic, I think I don't think it was 2 inch. I think it was 1 5/8 inch elastic. I really like how my pockets turned out here. I have just enough fabric left over of this from previous projects to sew or to cut out for pocket fabric pieces, because you need 2 on each side, and it was so satisfying to cut that up because I used up that rest of the fabric. And so this is also about knee length. This was also from the remnants bin. I want to say it wasn't even 1 yard, but it was a 54 inch wide fabric, which is so nice. And I don't feel like there's a ton of 54 inch wide fabric options. I mean, I'm sure there are, but just not like as easily available maybe? I don't know. At least when I was looking at Joann's. And so this worked out really well, and I could fold it. Which way did I fold it then? well, anyway, doesn't matter. This fabric doesn't really have a front or a back or an up or down, which can be to your advantage, but can also be confusing when you're trying to sew like right sides together or wrong sides together because you can't really tell. So I always mark it with chalk so that I know which way it is. Here is another one. And this one has a little bit of color blocking going on because this fabric is a 44-inch wide fabric and I didn't have the width I wanted, and so I added on another color and I just did it to one side. The inseam pockets are here. I did those in the purple. So I've got this this is also the linen cotton by Kaufman Fabrics, and so I have a purple and then a blue, and yeah, I really like how this one turned out as well. I also used the selvage edges on this. I have 0 of the purple left and a teeny bit of the blue left, so I just folded that part down for the waistband. And then I like to do this additional sewing over the waistband so nothing twists or turns on the inside, and I like the look of it. And yeah, I just have to like pull, like stretch it out on the sewing machine while I'm sewing that part, and it can be a little tricky, but I think if you go slowly, it's just fine. So I really like how this one turned out as well. This one, the waistband, I did slightly wider than the rust one, so the rust one sits a little bit higher, and then this purple and blue one, I mean, it doesn't sit like low or anything, but it can go lower if I don't want it like above my belly button. So this one I did longer as well. I attached more of the purple along the bottom. That's maybe 6 inches extra, so this one goes a little bit past my knees, so maybe it's a little more midi length. So yeah, I'm super excited about my 3 new skirts with pockets. Again, I don't follow a pattern. If you just search on Google for like gathered skirt with pockets patterns, there's tons out there. Some are paid for, some are free, some are more like tutorials to walk you through like different formulas on how to calculate it for yourself. Some of them use just regular like rectangular panels, and other ones have it tapered on the top so that you don't have too much gathered fabric along the waistband. Some have like a flat front and then a gathered back part or elastic back part. But yeah, there's tons of stuff out there. If you have a sewing shop near you, oftentimes they have classes or they can help you out if you have questions. So that's where I recommend you go get your resources from. I am not a resource for stuff like that. I will not be making any tutorials for anything. There are probably hundreds out there, so I'm sure you can find something that'll work for you. Or I hope you find something that works for you. Okay, back to knitting projects. I have 4 finished projects to share with you. The first one I'll share with you is a hat. This one is a little bit of a mash up of patterns. I used remaining yarn from my Farmer's Daughter Fibers Sock Squad Sock Set yarn. That is an annual subscription or monthly subscription for a year. And the sets, the colorways are based on or inspired by wildflowers and their pollinators. I had knit socks out of these yarns already, and I wanted to use them all up. And so initially when I started, I did not use a provisional cast on because I thought I wanted to knit, 8 or 9 inches and then knit to the cast on edge and then continue for a little bit and then do a crown. There is a pattern for a fingering weight hat that is free by Pearl Soho, written by Taylor Harris, called the Far and Wide Hat, and I have knit that. There are a few sizes listed on there, and so I thought, okay, maybe that's what I'll do. And I adjusted needle size and gauge a little bit, and so I cast on, I think for less stitches than the final size I was going to make because my gauge had less stitches per inch. So I used a US 3 or 3.25 millimeter needle, and I was getting, I think, 6.5 stitches per inch. And then I decided, okay, I wanted to use more of the yarn, and so I would knit it to be more like this, which is more similar to the Musselburgh hat pattern by Isolde Teague, and that one is a paid for pattern. And So it's kind of a mashup of the two. Neither of them are like particularly unique patterns, and I'm not saying that as like a criticism, I'm just saying that as an observation. Like there are lots of hats that can be written to be like this. And so then I was like, okay, if I want to extend the amount of yarn I have, which this is how much yarn I have left of that main color, by the way, and I started out with 64.5 grams. This is the May of this year's colorway called Queen Anne's Lace, and it is a Blueface Leicester nylon blend at 400 yards for 100 grams, and I used up pretty much all of it, minus less than a gram. And I also used the contrast color that came with it. So this color I would say is like a pinky lavender, and there's heavy speckling in it with shades of purple and pink. Some of the speckling pooled a little. And then this is the contrast color, and it's a bluey periwinkle color. And then this deep teal that I striped in is from March, and that is an 80/20 superwash merino nylon blend, but the same weight, so 400 yards for 100 grams. So then I striped those in, and I had, I think, 2 grams remaining. Not enough to quite finish another round of like the 5-round stripes, because I thought about putting one in, but I also like the look of the 3 better, so it kind of just worked out. So all in all, I used 85 grams for this hat, and so what I ended up having to do, since I didn't do a provisional cast on and I didn't start from a crown end, is that I had to very carefully pick up from my cast on edge, and I think it blacked out just fine. I mean, it isn't like as neat as maybe the rest of the stockinette fabric would be that didn't have a place where I picked up, but I think it's just fine. I don't think it's something that I would always do, but in this situation, it was fine. Plus, I did an old Norwegian cast on, which is stretchier, so there's more yarn involved. And I think if I did a regular long tail cast on, it might have been even tidier of a pickup. I don't know. So basically, this kind of hat is one that you tuck one end into the other, and you can either knit it all the same and just have the same hat regardless which way you wear it, or you can have different hats. So this one, you can either wear like this slouchy with the stripes, or you can have it folded up and the stripes disappear and you have the contrast color instead, or flip it the other way, wear it slouchy with this contrast brim, or fold it up and have stripes. So it's super fun. This one ended up being, I guess, more like 4 looks in one, which is really fun. And the sizing came out to be about like an adult small medium. I have a clip in my hair right now, but I think it's a small clip, so I can put it on to show you. So yeah, this is without it folded up. And it fits pretty well. It fits over my glasses, which is always a good sign. I had my 10-year-old try it on, and she really liked it. And so I said maybe I'll save it in the gift bin for her. We'll see. I always have several hats going throughout the year to go into the gift bin for Christmas and birthdays, so we'll see if this one ends up going to her or to somebody else. I don't know. I think that is all I have to say about this one. I did not do a final measurement to see how long it is. I know I like to knit them pretty long to have the option of it being slouchy or folded up, because ears, wind, I do not like wind in the ears, and so to have that option of being able to fold it up for that extra protection is something that, I mean, if I can make that happen, then I'm going to make it happen. Next we have 3 pairs of socks. I think I'll start with, I'll start with these. These are my husband's socks, and I believe last time we talked, I had just started them. I think I was just at the cuff. And these are sport weight, and I used US 2 or 2.75 millimeter needles. I knit these using Magic Loop and 9-inch circulars. I like to knit my socks in tandem, 2 at a time on their own needles. It may not be the most like economical way to do it because you have to buy 2 sets of needles. However, I, knock on wood, never get second sock syndrome because I knit my socks at the same time. And if I'm going somewhere and I need to pack light, I can just take one with me because they're not stuck on the same set of needles. So it works really well for me, and yeah, so I just keep doing it that way. I like to knit my socks cuff down. I have knit them toe up before and been just fine, but I just prefer to knit them cuff down. And so here I did a knit 2 purl 2 ribbing, and in between the color changes I did a knit round with no purling so that I don't get that purl bump coming through. It's a purely cosmetic thing. It doesn't really affect the function, and that's just what I did. Then I knit, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 stripes in the leg. I did a heel flap and gusset using Patons Croy sock yarn, which is labeled as fingering, but I'm pretty sure it's closer to a sport. And that yarn works really well for everything. I feel like it washes well, it has minimal pilling. I've never had to mend any socks that have used that yarn so far. Oh, and the main color is dyed by one of my favorite self-striping yarn dyers, Michelle of Woolens and Nosh. This yarn is the colorway Into the Mystic, and it is a sport weight yarn. It is 90% superwash target, 10% nylon. It's a very round and bouncy yarn, and it lasts through a lot of wearing and washing. And I have used this base multiple times, and I really, really like it. Let's see, what was I going to say? I ended up using almost all of the yarn, I believe. I used 96 grams of this main color, and for the contrast color I used about 12 to 13 grams. And my husband wears a US 10 men's shoe, and his foot circumference is 9.5 inches. So I cast on 64 stitches with the sport weight yarn on US 2s at a gauge of 7 stitches per inch. And that worked out really well for me, and I love how these socks came out. Next, 2 pairs of socks are for our children. We have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I knit them matching socks. I like to knit them socks in the summer for the beginning of the school year so they can wear them on their first day of school. And it's way too hot to wear them in the summer anyway, so it actually works out really well. So then they have brand new, really fun socks to wear on their first day of school that goes with all the excitement and some of the jitters, and to know that I'm there with them. So I knit the one for the 10-year-old first. And this yarn is called Candy Shop, and it is dyed by another one of my favorite self-striping yarn dyers, Ashley of Nomadic Yarns. And I just love how these colors turned out. It's so bright. There's this like bright green, and then a bubblegum pink, this royal blue color, and then like a golden yellow, and then you get this like pinky purple, and then this green and pink is like double striped, and then it goes into these other 4 colors. And then the contrasting yarn is a sparkle fuchsia dyed by my friend Beth of Deciduous Knits, also known as Witty Knittin', and I used that for the heel and the toe, and I did a shadow wrap heel here. If you would like a tutorial for that, Denise of Earth Tones Girl has an excellent tutorial for that. I didn't follow a specific pattern for the whole sock, but I do use her tutorial for this heel. I cast on 56 stitches for our 10-year-old to finish with a 7-inch foot circumference, and my gauge on US 1 or 2.25 millimeter needles with this yarn is 8 stitches per inch. And this yarn is 400 yards for 100 grams. I believe this is her twisty sock base, so it's 80-20 superwash merino nylon. There's a high twist, and I feel like these also last really well. My kids wear their socks in tennis shoes. They wear them all day at school. They rub their feet around all over the carpet, and it wears really well. So I enjoy knitting with this yarn, and my kids like wearing it. So then I used about 43 grams of the main color here and about 8 grams of the contrast. So then I cast on for the 7-year-old socks, and I did a 1x1 rib on this one. I did a 2x2 rib on the other one. So I did 1x1 rib on this one, and then I had this miscellaneous gray mini that I used for the shadow wrap heel on these, and the toes on these as well. And these I cast on 52 stitches. Her foot circumference is 6.5 inches, so this ends up with, I think, no negative ease, maybe, because feet grow when they're so little. And yeah, I'm really happy with how these turned out. I used 37 grams of the main color and then 9 grams of the contrast color on this one. So I still had, I think, 28 grams remaining of this main color, and I'm knitting myself a pair of socks. So what I'm going to do is use a solid color, I think, for like the heel, for the cuff and the leg and the heel. And then I'm going to use the remaining color just for the foot section. If I have enough, I'll finish the toe with the main color. Otherwise, I'll finish the toe in the solid color. So I think that'll be really fun. We are on to the works in progress. And I think I am going to share 3 of them with you today. One you have seen before. It is a long-term project. The other 2 you have not seen yet. One is a test, and the other, well, the 2 are both new cast-ons because you haven't seen them before. But I am excited to share them with you. I think we'll start with the one that you have seen before. This is the Half and Half Triangles Wrap by Purl Soho, free pattern on their website, and well, I'm not going to go through all the details on it. You can watch previous videos to get all the details on that. Again, it is a free pattern, so if you have questions about it, I recommend you read the pattern. The pattern's, I think, like 1 page. So it is all done by Short Rows. I have made some modifications on mine, as I have said in the past, and I have knit several of these. It is my comfort knit. It is the thing I knit while I am reading because there's no counting to do. Again, the shaping, actually I don't know if I said it already, but the shaping is done all by Short Rows, so you're not increasing stitches, decreasing stitches. The number of stitches you're actively working at a time does change, but that's because of the Short Row shaping. So the number of stitches on the needles at any given time is the same because you cast them all on in the beginning. And I'm excited to share with you mine because it does look different from last time. I don't remember if I shared it at the end of June, but I know I shared it at the beginning of June when I recorded because I cast this one on June 1st. This one is called Love Letters, and if you are new here, I do name all of my Half and Half Triangles wraps. They are usually inspired by something either at a certain point in my life or something I've been thinking about a lot or just some idea, some theme, and that usually is related to the color scheme, and yeah, it's just all combined together. And I am using Purl Soho's linen quill yarn for this project. It is what the pattern is originally written for, and I just love this fingering weight yarn. So I started with Peony Pink as my first color, and I had mentioned this back beginning of June that I'm doing it a little differently. So the pattern is usually written, well, not usually, but the pattern has 2 versions. There's one that's 2 colors, so each triangle is 1 color, and then the second version Purl Soho put out has striping and color blocking. I'm doing neither of those, but I am casting on 260 stitches, or I have cast on 260 stitches, and I am using a US 4, which is a 3.5mm needle, instead of a US 3, which is what I've knit the previous ones in, which is what the pattern is written for. I just wanted something with a little airier of a fabric, and I don't measure gauge for shawls generally because it doesn't matter to me, so I couldn't tell you what my gauge is. But here it is. You ready? Dun, 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 dun. Oh, I just love it. Okay, so Peony Pink is this first color, which is like a pale peachy pink. And once I finished my first hank of that color, which was I think like 105 grams or something like that, I joined in Bright Flamingo, which I had remaining from previous projects, and I join it at the part where I'm doing the short rows because this is the right side. So if I joined it on the other side starting from an edge, then I would see this like blip, which again, it's just a cosmetic thing. It doesn't really matter, but I didn't want the blip on the right side. So I have a nice neat line on the right side of the fabric, and I love how it's looking. So I don't remember how much of this yarn I started with, maybe about 50 grams or so. It's written in my project notebook, but I'm not going to find the information right now. But this is Bright Flamingo, which is like a fluorescent pinky orange coral color. It's glorious. And so that is making an appearance here. And then when I'm done with this one, I know I will still have stitches to go, so I will add in another color, and you will see that color when I get to it. Mostly because I don't have it completely planned out, and I'm going with what I feel like at that time. And so I have an idea what the next color will be after this, but I'm not making any commitments, so I will get to it when I get to it. And then once I have either 1 or 2 more contrast colors in, I'm going back to Peony Pink, and I will finish off this triangle with the Peony Pink before I start my second color, my second triangle half, my second half. And I have a main color picked out for that one, and contrast colors kind of figured out, but we will get there when we get there. I anticipate this project taking about 6 months, just because of the size of it. I did the 260 stitches, which is the larger size of the 2-color version. I believe the stripy color block version casts on even more than 260 stitches, but yeah, this is my go-to when I am reading at night, when I'm waiting for my kids to finally settle down and go to sleep, when I am asking them to brush their teeth and I'm sitting in the hallway waiting for them to brush their teeth. And it is something that I just don't have to think on. So if I'm really tired, I can still knit. If I just want to knit on something, I can still knit. I don't have to worry about fit. I don't have to worry about running out of yarn. I just don't have to think very much, which honestly, okay, here's the other thing. I don't have to think very much about the project, but I often think a lot while I'm working on this, or I can also choose to use it to clear my mind and think about nothing at all. So that is my project. Love letters, and I have a progress keeper on here, which is this beautiful tulip, and that is by Yura of Knit Boop Studio. And I have a stitch marker on this side, which is a polymer clay leaf, and that is by Reshma of Hello Lavender. And yeah, I think that is it to say about that one. I may or may not show this at each time we chat here, because again, it is a long-term project. I do have a tutorial here on YouTube that show my general modifications on this. The pattern uses a wrap and turn method. I like to use German short rows. The pattern has a garter edge on the side. I slip 1 or 2 stitches. Not like every other row. Like, I decide for that project if I'm going to slip 1 or 2 stitches on the edge. But yeah, I will link to that in the description box below this video so that you can access it if you have questions there. But yes, I do recommend reading the pattern. It's only a page long if you are unsure about what is happening. And Purl Soho does have a customer service, and so if you have additional questions about the pattern, you can always ask there. Okay, working down the list. The next one I'm going to share with you today, we'll just keep going with the shawls. This is a pattern I am testing for Tiff Nealon. It is called Sun-Kissed Stripes. I had been really wanting a shawl knit from plant fibers because sometimes I just want a little coverage on my shoulders from the sun. Sometimes there's a little bit of a cool breeze in the mornings or evenings. Sometimes, not right now, but sometimes. And I don't want the prickle of wool, and so the plant fiber is what I wanted to knit a shawl in, and I hadn't done that before. And I just realized that before I started this work in progress section, I changed my top, and I forgot to say anything about it. Not that I have to, but I just got too hot. Speaking of not wanting wool prickling my skin when it's hot, I changed my shirt. I still have the same skirt on, but this shirt comes to like high hip. It ends right at the top of my hip bone, and so it works really well with high-waisted skirts. I can still tuck in the top if I want to, and I think it still looks nice, but either way, either way works. This is the Coloring Book Tee, a pattern also by Amy Sher. This is the t-shirt view of it. I've talked about it previously. I did have a neckline put in before, like a crocheted slip stitch neckline to make sure it wasn't going to stretch out, but I actually took it out, and this is just the raw cast on edge, and I really like the, what would you say, the opening. I really like how wide it is, but it isn't too wide. Like it isn't boat necky or falls off my shoulders. It's just like comfortably wide, and especially in the summer, I do not like anything right up on my neck or like really high up because I need it to be breathable, and this is very breathable. So what made me think about it is that this tee I knit in the same yarn as what I'm knitting this shawl in. So I'm not going to tell you too many details because it is a test in progress, but I'm going to tell you the yarns that I'm using. I'm using Purl Soho Santalina, and that has become, at least for this summer, my favorite warm weather yarn to use. It is fingering weight, but I feel like you can knit it at different gauges, which I have done. In previous episodes, I shared 2 tops that I knit at, looser gauges, but using this yarn, and it worked out really well. So this is Santalina. Here is the tag. It is a 70% organically grown cotton, 20% rayon from bamboo, and 10% hemp. And it comes at 328 yards for 100 grams. And you can machine wash it. I don't know about you, but in the summer, there's sweat, and there's like beach sand, and there's, I don't know, sunscreen and like bug spray and stuff, and just soaking it in the sink isn't gonna do it for me. So I love that I can throw this in the washer. I put it in like a mesh delicates bag to make sure nothing snags on it, and then it's also easier to know which one it is so I can pull it out to lay flat to dry. You can put it in the dryer, but I always worry that it'll shrink or something weird will happen to it, or it'll like do some weird warping thing. I don't know. I've not put it in the dryer. I just lay it out flat to dry, and it's just fine. So this has gone through the washing machine multiple times, and it still looks brand new. I knit this, I think a year ago now. Maybe a year ago, and I've worn it multiple times, like I said, and it has gone through the washing machine just fine. I wash it on cold with all the other laundry, but in like a mesh bag, and yeah, it's done just fine. So back to the shawl. So I'm using the same yarn, and these are the colors that I am knitting my shawl in. Now this top color I bought from Purl Soho's sample sale, so you don't have it as an option, but the closest one to this option would be their Robin Redbreast, which is a little more vibrant than this color. This color is more terracotta pink, terracotta pinky brown, which I just love this color. And the other one is more vibrant, like a red orange, rusty red orange. This color is available. This is Peach Lily, and it is a very pale pinky peach. And then I'm using Beige Bunny, which is like a sandy taupey beige color as my main color. So I really wanted a warm neutral palette, and that's what I have. And I think it's gonna go with everything, and I'm so excited. I guess this warm neutral palette's kind of having a moment because my skirt goes with that too. You know, this outfit may be what I end up taking finished project photos with, and this shawl. I don't know, it seems like it would go really well, don't you think? I'm just gonna flash it and not tell you any details because, again, it is in testing, and it is not a secret, but I will tell you no details. Here you go. Dun 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 dun. By the time I come back next, it will be finished. It might even be published. And there's texture, and it's really fun to knit, and I am enjoying it. So yeah, this will be done and probably published, like the pattern published, by the time we sit down and chat next time. Last work in progress I would like to share with you today is a hat that I cast on. This is using the July Farmer's Daughter Fibers Sock Squad sock set. I'm going to show you the calendar because I don't think I showed it to you last time. It took me a little bit to decide what I wanted to do with this month's yarn. So here is July's inspiration, and it is lupine, and the Karner, it says blue fly, but when I looked it up, I'm pretty sure it said blue butterfly. I don't know. Anyway, it's this beautiful blue color, and here is the yarn. It's this beautiful blue color with little bits of purple in there, just the slightest hint of it. And then the contrast color is this light gray that I feel like in some lights has a hint of lavender. Maybe it looks that way if it's next to the blue. And then I'm also using this color, I think from a year ago, Sock Squad, I can't remember. I think it was from the Verbena sock set, and this was a mini from that, I think. It's like a dusty peach color. So the pattern I am knitting, oh wait, one more thing on the yarn. Here is the label. It is a 75/25 superwash merino nylon, and it comes at 463 yards for 100 grams, so it's a light fingering weight, and this color is lupine. And I have cast on the Held Together hat by Lindsay Fowler of Larkspur Knits, and it is an all-over ribbed hat with fun marled striping. And the fun thing about this is that this striping part uses up pretty minimal yarn, and so if you have a little bit of yarn from other projects remaining, it's a fun way to play with color there. And it is a hat that ends up with a folded brim, which makes it a great gift knit. So the ribbing allows for a lot of elasticity, so fit doesn't have to be exact. And then because the brim is meant to be folded up, the length also doesn't have to be exact. I always tend to go a little bit longer just in case, because, well, a hat that's too short is no fun. And so I am maybe halfway through, and then I will start the crown decreasing. And so this is a really fun project to just have on the go, and I am using, I believe, US 3 or 3.25 millimeter needles. Yep, on a 16-inch, and I have a stitch marker on here, also by Reshma of Hello Lavender. It's this like rusty orange flower. And then this Progress Keeper that can also be used as a stitch marker is also by Reshma. And it's this yellow flower with a white center, and I just love it. So I'm very happy with how this project is going. And yeah, this is just one that I have on the go when I am waiting for the kids for various things and there might not be enough time to go home or really to run an errand or anything. So it is my project that I can just knit on whenever. Okay friends, we have made it to Eats and Reads. I mentioned in the beginning that I was going to say a couple of things on what we've been eating from the garden. We have planted a variety of different peppers this year. Some we've planted in the past, but some are different. So this year we tried planting pepperoncinis, and I've been pickling them, and they are so tasty. And we put them in tacos, we put them just in like a rice bowl situation. They have gone on top of burgers, they just go on anything, and they're so good. And I have also planted pineapple sage this year. I will say it smells more like pineapple than tastes like pineapple, but the sage is still delicious. I will just julienne it, so like really thin ribbon cut, and put it on a hot pan with butter, and it smells so good. And you put in some chopped onion, not chopped onions, chopped garlic. I suppose you could do the onions, but I haven't done that. Garlic, so garlic, butter, and sage. I mean, that's just like a beautiful trio. And then that goes into like a pasta dish with some tomatoes from the garden, and it's so good. And I hear that sage is a mosquito deterrent. I don't know if it works or not, but I have a big old thing of sage in the garden and I try to stand next to it. Maybe if I just rub the sage leaves all over me, that will help. I don't know. So yes, that's what's been going from garden to table, and it's so good, and hopefully I'll have inserted some pictures here on the screen. As far as reading goes, I have gone through so many books in the last 2 months. The first thing I wanted to talk about are 3 books that I read by a new to me author. So that is Emily Henry. I think her books are super popular right now, or so I've heard, and so says the waitlist that I have on her latest publication from the library. I think I was at like number 200 something before, and now I'm at 100 something, so it certainly won't be a summer read, at least not this year. Maybe it'll be a winter read when I'm thinking about summer. I don't know. I really enjoy winter, so that's not... Anyway, I don't know where I was going with that. So, the 3 books that I have read by Emily Henry are Book Lovers, People We Meet on Vacation, and Beach Read, in that order. This is what I'm going to say. I think if I go into it with the expectation that they will be entertaining books and not like life-changing books or completely like pull up my heartstrings type of books, then I'm okay. But I think I didn't really quite know what to think going into them, and the books had been so hyped that I was expecting something like, I don't know, something that I would want to read again and again, and that wasn't it. So it isn't that I was disappointed. I think my expectations were just not quite what it was supposed to be for it. And I can't remember what I had read like what I had finished reading right beforehand, but I feel like they were a series of books that were like really, really good, like right up my alley. And so then when I read, the first one I read was Book Lovers, I was like, all right, this is okay. I mean, it's entertaining enough. Not a book that I would read again, but it was fine. I felt like some of the characters were a little one-dimensional, and I just didn't feel like super invested. And that's totally fine. I don't have to feel that way about every book. And then I read okay, I should preface that with saying I didn't really read it, I kind of read it. So People We Meet on Vacation, I didn't love the format. The beginning started all like continuous, but then it like flipped back and forth between the present and then like past trips that these 2 main characters have gone on together. And I just didn't love that format. Sometimes I'm okay with it, but for whatever reason I wasn't in the mood. And so what I did was I skipped all the chapters that went back in time and just continued the story for the present time. Of course, that's going to have me miss some of the things that would relate to stuff in the present, but I don't know. I wasn't super invested, and so I just kind of skimmed over through that and finished it and then returned it to the library. So then the 3rd book I read was Beach Read, and by then, okay, my expectations are like, okay, this is just for fun, this is just going to be entertaining, I don't have to like get too invested, and I did enjoy it. I thought it was entertaining, I thought it was fine, and in some ways I feel like the setting was more relatable. This one is based in Michigan, on the beach, and I'm not from Michigan, but I'm in Minnesota, and we have some similarities in like big lakes and beachiness type of things. Anyway. So in that sense, the setting and the descriptions of the settings were more relatable, and what I got out of that one is, you know, love is complicated, relationships are complicated, they're not always what they seem to be, and that's okay, that's just, you know, that's what it is. And so I did get something out of that book. I thought it was fine. Again, not something I would read again and again, but I was entertained, and I did read through that whole book. So then from there, I started reading The Book Woman of Troublesome Creek by Kim Michelle Richardson, and hopefully as I'm talking about these, like a picture of the book cover will be here on the screen. I feel like that visual is really helpful. I am not one that always remembers words very well, but visuals I tend to remember. Like I might remember the cover or the color of a book cover, but not remember the name of the book. Anyway, so this book I believe is I don't know if it's a duology or series, but there's a 2nd book to it too. And I have to say that coming from reading like entertaining rom-com, like modern romance rom-com type of books, then jumping to historical fiction that starts like super grim, I was like, whoa! So I do like the writing style. I've not finished the book yet. It's heavy. I feel like it starts heavy and continues to have very heavy topics throughout. Maybe trigger warnings should be at the beginning of the book. It's a little intense, and there are heartwarming parts to it so far, but it's pretty grim, and there are parts of it that are very like infuriating, and you really feel for this character, and it's just, there's a lot of unfairness, and they're kind of stuck, but they're trying to change it or trying to do something about it. Self-discovery, again, love in different relationships, and yeah, so it is really good, but the jump between like the modern romance type to like historical fiction, really intense, it was a big jump. So I'm still reading it, but not necessarily every night. And then I am also reading The House in the Cerulean Sea, and that's by T.J. Klune, and I am loving it. It's kind of whimsical, it's YA fiction. Parts of it are a little like sad and lonely too, like the main character is. So he's like going to be sent on this mission, and I haven't gotten right to the mission. I've just gotten to the part where this main character is assigned the mission, and I like the descriptions, and I like the writing style. I like the pace and the flow of this one so far, and I've heard great things about it. So that one's an ongoing one. And then I was looking for something that was more like, well, not more, but I was looking for something that was heartwarming and not necessarily something I had to read like straight through. And I found this book at the library called Love Stories by Trent Dalton. Trent is an Australian author who is or was a journalist, and I don't know if currently he's still being a journalist while writing books, but and I'm loving it. So growing up, I read a lot of the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. So they're like a collection of stories, and they are organized in different themes for the books, and whether by age or by, you know, where you are in life, that kind of stuff. And so this one kind of reminded me of that, but like a grown-up version. Although Chicken Soup for the Soul had adult stories in them too, I think. But I just love it. So Trent is sitting on this corner and collecting love stories from people that walk by. And I am really enjoying his writing style. I feel like it's witty, there's a dry sense of humor in there, but it's also very heartwarming, and I like how all the stories like intertwine together with how he's relating things in his mind, and I really, really like it. And this one did come with I don't know what you would call it, but in the beginning there's like an author's note that just kind of gives you a heads up as to some of the topics that might be triggering to people, or might be uncomfortable, or might just, might be, I don't know, distressing to people. So I appreciated having that kind of heads up in the beginning, which I feel like a lot of books don't have, and then you start reading and like on page 5 you're like, what in the world? Oh, that brings me to a book that I don't have on hand anymore, that I returned, that I read like 30 pages of and I couldn't read it anymore. That one is, what is it called? Something about love and chemistry. The book is a coral color, and I don't have it written down, and there's a person's face on the front, and yeah, anyway, I can't remember. It's also a super popular one that I was on the wait list for a while, and I have to say that that one I couldn't get into. I didn't love, I don't know, I just wasn't in the mood for it, and it was a little intense in the beginning. I feel like that one should have come with some warnings as far as content goes, but it was infuriating and distressing, and you know, the stuff that's talked about is very real and still happens to this day. I think it's set in the 50s or 60s, 1950s or 60s, I can't remember now, but yeah, I read like 30 pages and I was like, this is not what I'm in the mood for right now. So that went back to the library. But that being said, I'm loving Love Stories by Trent Dalton right now. I am enjoying The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek, and I am also loving The House in the Cerulean Sea. And I generally don't read a ton of books all simultaneously, but I feel like they all touch on different things, and so depending on my mood, that is what I'm reading. We have made it to the very end. I've had to charge the camera, I think twice. I think that is everything that I wanted to share with you today. I know I talked pretty quickly. I was running out of time. We have to leave to go somewhere, and so I gotta wrap things up. But yeah, cheers. Cheers to being creative. I hope you are doing well. I hope you are taking care of yourselves, your loved ones, and your neighbors, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.